Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Tom's Gadget Garage. Today I'm going to give you a quick update on my journey to learning how to ride an electric unicycle, which, may I add, is a heck of a lot more difficult than it actually appears. You know, when I first picked up my InMotion V8S, I thought to myself, how hard could this really be? You know, I ride electric scooters, electric bikes, I've ridden skateboards, longboards, I've done rollerblading. I mean, how hard can hopping onto one of these electric unicycles that are self-balancing really be? And I'll tell you what, it's quite the challenge. It's definitely something that's unfamiliar to me, and it has had a much higher learning curve than I thought it would, but so far all I can say, it's been an absolute blast. Now, one thing I will say, and this is me being completely honest, is I haven't had as much practice on this thing as I would have liked. You know, really, I've been averaging about one session per week of about 20 minutes. So you might be asking yourself, 20 minutes, that's not a lot at all. Well, I'll tell you what, it's definitely a lot, because riding one of these things is like a hardcore leg workout. Like, I'm working muscles in my calves and my ankles, all my lower legs that I didn't even know I had. You know, after 20 minutes, your legs are pretty much burning. But what I will say is that it does get better over time as you're able to, you know, pick up this new skill and learn to balance. That muscle fatigue has slowly gotten less and less severe after every one of my sessions. But even at once a week, I can tell you right now, my progression is very apparent. Like, when I first got onto this thing, you know, I would be holding on for dear life onto like a light pole or a rail or a wall, whatever I could find, and I would rock back and forth, like everybody says. But I abandoned that idea after about one full training session. And the reason why is I don't want to get comfortable holding on to something, because when you really start riding this thing, you're holding on to nothing. You've got your hands free to do whatever you want with. And so I abandoned holding on to things, and I went straight into the second session with learning how to get on this thing and start moving forward. Now, getting onto the electric unicycle without any assistance, like holding on to something with your hands, is quite a challenge to start. You know, you've got this, you know, UFO shaped thing that's sitting at, you know, 90 degrees with two pedals here at the bottom. And, you know, when you first step on with your dominant foot, in my case, my right foot, the thing wants to lean to the right. And then if you were just to stand up like you normally would stand up, you'd fall over, right? And so when you first get onto an electric unicycle, you have to balance yourself so that you can get both feet on and start moving forward. And the way you do this is you step on with your dominant foot, and then you lean in the opposite direction to kind of shift your center of gravity, and then you take that step forward with your other leg and you land it on the foot pad, and then you can start moving forward. So it's definitely something that's a little bit different that you have to get used to, but once you get a hang of it, it becomes second nature. So when you first start and, you know, you've mastered getting onto the electric unicycle, you might only be able to go forward a few inches, you know, and then your next session maybe a few feet. You know, it takes practice. And by the time you get to your third, fourth, fifth, sixth session, all of a sudden you're going, you know, 10 feet, 20 feet, 50 feet, 100 feet. In fact, the other day I was actually able to go about 150 feet, so a little over halfway around this like small school parking lot that I've been practicing in during off hours when there's nobody in the parking lot. And so, you know, the progress is there. You just have to put the time and effort. And honestly, 20 minutes a session once a week, I'm really surprised how much I've been able to pick up so far. One thing that was a little difficult for me to accept during this was that my electric unicycle was going to take quite the beating. And so when I posted my first unboxing video of the InMotion V8S and talking about, you know, how much I'm going to be practicing and using this thing, some of you commented saying, hey, you should buy yourself a cover. And so I did exactly that, and thank goodness I did, because this electric unicycle has been doing cartwheels in the parking lot every time I have to hop off of it. In fact, one time when I did hop off, the sucker kept going, right? And I had to run after it and grab onto it. And so that's been a challenge as well. But like I said before, with each session, there are fewer cartwheels, there are fewer runaways. I'm able to maintain more or less pretty decent control of the device when hopping off of it. But as you can imagine, you know, if you've got a device doing cartwheels in the parking lot, it's going to get beat up. And, you know, here's a picture of the bottom of the pedals. You know, they are absolutely scratched up. And at first I was like, oh gosh, you know, I just spent like $900 on this thing and it's all messed up. It looks ugly. Who cares? Who cares? Keep riding. These things are built like tanks. Like, these things are bouncing around all over the place and they don't miss a beat. I hop right back back on, everything's good to go. I did scratch up the top a little bit, but it's okay. Like a lot of people say, your first electric unicycle is going to get beat up, and that is absolutely the truth. Now, one of the things that you're going to have to learn when riding an electric unicycle is how to step off the unicycle gracefully. Unfortunately, I had a little scenario where I didn't do it gracefully. I actually injured myself, which put me out of commission for about a week. But when stepping off of a unicycle, you don't want to step directly in front of it. Like I was moving, I was losing my balance, so I thought I would put my foot down and kind of kick myself, give myself a little momentum so I can put my foot back on and continue my path forward. Unfortunately, I put my foot down in front of the unicycle, which you've got these like 2 footrests there that are low to the ground. And so as you can imagine, if this thing is moving and you put your foot down on the ground in front of it, it's going to hit the back of your ankle, and that's what happened. I literally thought I blew my Achilles tendon. It hit me so hard. In fact, it actually ate up my shoe here. You can see, like, once it hit my ankle, it like sucked my shoe into the moving wheel in the frame. Like, it was an awful experience. And so when you do dismount, don't step in front of it. You know, step to the side, do something other than stepping in front of it, because it will hit you. And I'll tell you what, it is painful as heck. Quick little funny story here. While I was practicing in the parking lot of a movie theater around Thanksgiving time, there's this family that came out of the movie theater, and they saw me practicing, and they're like, oh wow, that's really cool. Oh, it's good that you're using safety. You know, you got your helmet and your pads on and everything. Good for you. I wish more people did that. And oh, look, you're actually practicing right across the street from an emergency room. So if you do fall down and get hurt, it's right there. Ha 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 ha. It's so funny. And I was like, what the heck? And maybe that was a bad omen there, because literally a few minutes later is when I hit the back of my ankle. And I'll tell you what, like, it was like 5-7 days, like I couldn't even walk straight. Like, it was so painful and bruised. But after about a week, I was back up and running again. I actually went and made some scooter and e-bike videos, and so I'm back to my full self. Now that we're at the end of the year, things are slowing down at work, we're in the middle of the holidays, I have a little more free time, so I'm going to try and double or triple up on my training sessions, get maybe an hour in every week over 3 different sessions to increase my progression and learning how to ride this thing, because I'm really excited. Because one thing I'm going to tell you about an electric unicycle is it's unlike anything I've ever ridden before. The whole reason why I got an electric unicycle is I wanted to get that same feel that I used to get when riding a longboard down the mountains of Colorado at 50 plus miles an hour, like no brakes, nothing, just cruising. And the level of freedom and that you get from that kind of an experience, it's really hard to describe. And so I wanted to do, get that with an electric unicycle. You don't quite get it with a bike. Bike is kind of relaxed, riding around. You don't quite get it with an electric scooter. You do somewhat, maybe 10%, but it's not quite the same because you're holding on to something. With the longboard, your hands are completely free, but you're standing kind of sideways, going straight. It's kind of weird, but it's a great sensation. With an electric unicycle, you're literally standing facing forward, cruising around, and this device is not in your peripheral vision. You don't see it, so you get the sensation that you're like floating through this parking lot. It's really hard to describe. It sounds a little corny right now, but once you start riding these things, you'll quickly learn why people are excited about these, and people are zipping around and spending $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 on these like insanely huge electric unicycles. It is absolutely a thrill ride. So over the coming weeks and months, I'm going to be doubling and tripling my time practicing how to ride my electric unicycle, because I really do want to get to that point where I can take my InMotion V8S on a hill climb test, on a range test, bring you all on for the journey riding through some cool places here in Arizona, but from a slightly different perspective. So thank you so much for tuning in. If you haven't subscribed already, consider doing so. If you want to stay on top of those updates, I'm going to try and get these updates out every week or 2 weeks so that you can follow along on my journey. And if you're interested in electric unicycles, maybe this will be helpful for you. As always, thank you all so much for tuning in to Tom's Gadget Garage. We'll see you next time.